There was a time when China had a one-child policy. It started in the late 1970s. The idea was to reduce the growth of Chinese population. The policy turned out to be a disaster. It left China with a population that's old and shrinking. In 2015, China relaxed its one-child policy. It allowed couples to have 2 kids. How generous. China's state-owned news agency Xinhua said the change of policy is intended to balance population development and address the challenge of an aging population. What China did not realize is that after decades of one-child policy, it was also left with a skewed population. In other words, a gender imbalance, the biggest in the world. Numbers worsened with high levels of female child mortality. China ended up with what was called missing females. Between 1980 and 2010, male children outnumbered female children by 36 million. Today, China has the world's most unbalanced sex ratio. For every 114 males, there are 100 females. Globally, the average sex ratio at birth is about 105 boys for every 100 girls. In China, there are 30 million more men, 30 million. These men are now having trouble finding wives, especially in rural areas. That's because men in rural areas are less educated and underemployed. So they end up as less desirable suitors. And this is interesting. Listen to this. Men in rural areas of Shaanxi, Henan and Hunan are reportedly having to offer as much as $155,000 when asking for a woman's hand in marriage. That's dowry 2.0. Dark humor aside, in 2020, the Global Times published an article. It said the squeeze would become worse in 20 to 30 years. The problem is real. What is China planning to do about it? One NGO in China has proposed playing Cupid. It's called the Shaanxi Think Tank Development Association, and it says leftover urban women. That's what it calls them. Leftover urban women should be paired with surplus rural men. Who are these so-called leftover women? Women above the age of 27 who are unmarried, highly educated and urban. If you fall in this category in China, you will be called Shengnu or leftover women. China will also totally disregard your choice to remain unmarried or marry at a later age. This Chinese NGO now has marriage proposals for these women. It also has some advice. Do not feel afraid to go and live in rural areas, it says. The NGO also has proposals for the Chinese government. Number 1, offer incentives to encourage urban women to move to rural areas. And number 2, provide vocational training to Shengnan or leftover men, surplus men as they're called, to make them better suitors. And I'm not making any of this up. And I know how atrocious all of this sounds. Well, China has seen worse, to be fair. Women have been trafficking from northern Myanmar into China. Women have been trafficked. Reports say these women were sold for anything between $3,000 to $13,000 to Chinese families. Once bought, these women were held as prisoners and pressured into producing babies. Another scandal came to light in 2019. Brides from Pakistan were being trafficked into China. The Associated Press claimed that at least 629 women were sold to Chinese men. They were abused, raped. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said it was unaware of any of it. It said the two governments, the ones of China and Pakistan, support the formation of happy families between their people on a voluntary basis in keeping with the laws and regulations. Disregard for consent can never be the answer to bridging the gender imbalance. So the question remains, what can China do about its skewed sex ratio? One article published in Human Rights Watch has proposed polyandry. It asks whether multiple husbands can solve China's gender imbalance. We leave that with China to decide. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.